Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Foxworth Theory. I am your host, Eugenia Foxworth, and this show is about business, entertainment, arts, and fashion. We will be speaking to people from around the world. They're all movers and shakers. And they will be able to tell their stories to us on the Foxworth Theory. This week, our guest is cookie entrepreneur and an A-list drummer, Ralph Rolle, who has been known to march to a different beat. His remarkable rise as an emerging drummer from the projects in the Bronx to becoming a powerful CEO and cookie entrepreneur is a testimony that dreams do come true. His cookies are rolling into Walmart beginning April the 1st, as he also directs a South Bronx based baking facility. At the same time, he continues to celebrate his legacy of making music with top artists, past and present, Nile Rodgers and Chic, Sting, Bono, Aretha Franklin, the Notorious B.I.G., and Queen Latifah, and others. He welcomes the world to taste the success, the Soul Snacks Cookie Company, with cookies that are so delicious. Welcome to the show, Ralph Roll.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I have been waiting to taste one of your cookies. One I haven't tasted is the vegan, and the one that's what I'm looking to taste because I heard it is so delicious. Which cookie launched your success and how did it happen?
Well, it happened many years ago, actually more than just about 26 years ago, is when I launched the company. And the company was launched from recipes that were passed down from my grandmother to my mother to me. And I'm the baker in the family. Everyone in my family had their specialty, and mine was just loving to bake. My grandmother grew up in Osceola, Georgia, and moved to Miami, and where she raised her children. So, as you know, all families have recipes, whether it's recipes as far as personality, recipes as far as what you eat, but those recipes are extremely important to families, all families of all ethnicities. So I urge people to hold on to those recipes. And for me, it was the cookie recipes. And I started from watching me and my cousin Vincent, we used to sit at the table. We were so small at the time that we had to sit on telephone books. And she would give us the bowl after she had mixed what she was about to bake. And we would be so happy to have it because that bowl was so clean, she didn't have to wash it from our fingers, digging in that bowl and licking that batter. And the smell is something that I never forgot as a kid. And just those memories of just how it makes you feel, just very comforting, the smell and the taste. And I never got away from that. I grew up in Bronx River houses, and my mother she raised four kids by herself. And being in a single parent household, she was always trying to make sure that we were in activities or doing something. And I was a mama's boy. I stayed up under my mother all the time. And that's how I learned how to bake, is just being under them and just passing those recipes forward. And now we're where we are. So that's kind of the condensed stories as to how it all got started.
So tell me a little. You mentioned you grew up in the Bronx. What made you believe that dreams do come true?
Um, Back to my mother. My mother was a very, very special lady, Rose Roll. She ran the tenant patrol, she ran the tenant association, she ran the garden program, and she ran the summer youth program, and she was the crossing guard on the corner. So her goal was to keep her kids and the kids in the neighborhood involved in activities because an idle mind is the devil's playground. So she knew that the more activities the kids in the neighborhood had, they hopefully would stay out of trouble. And I just got that naturally, just working with the community and employing and teaching. I've taught from the time I was a teenager, from the time that I started learning how to play drums. I would just teach kids in the neighborhood, and that's the whole mental process for me as far as the cookies and growing up in Bronx River and what that meant to me. It's very positive, actually.
It is positive. And your mother was a rolling stone. She didn't miss a corner or a curve when involved in your community, from what you're saying.
That
So,
lady. She was out of control, man. She had a hand in everything. When the tenants
love
would
it.
have problems, they wouldn't go to the management office. They would come to my mother and let her
Mm.
walk it into the management office because they know when they saw my mother coming, it was going to be something. So
That is so funny. So, how did you come to pursue a career in drumming? You've said
well,
that you have always marched the beat of a different, marched the beat of a different drummer, but how did this happen?
so when my brother Howie, who's about 8 years older than me, was a teenager, my mother allowed him to have drums in the house. And the reason why I say allowed is because when you're the president of the tennis association, one of the ordinances in the community is noise. So there was only a certain time of day that he was allowed to play the drums. That was, and after that you couldn't play. And I followed my brother no matter what he did. His name is Howard Rolle. Howie uh, was a role model for me due to the fact that I didn't have a father. Everything I gravitated towards him. So whatever he did, I did. If he was dressing a certain way, I wanted to dress like him. If he would comb his hair a certain style, when I had hair, I would comb it a certain style. All the music that he listened to the reason why I know so many different styles of music is because of him growing up. He listened to rock and jazz and pop and gospel and basically everything. The drums showed up in the bedroom, and I just wanted to play drums. And he told me, he said, you could play the drums, but you're left-handed, so don't change the drums around because I know you want to play like a left-handed setup. Now, musicians know what I mean when I say that. If you're on a right-handed kit, the tones usually go from the high tones on the left to the low tones on the right. If you're left-handed, the tones go from the high on the right to the left. And right-handed drummers, they play cross-handed like this. I'm a left-handed drummer on a right-handed kit, and I play open-handed, and that's how I learned how to play. And it stuck. I never changed it, and it's actually worked to my benefit moving forward in my career. And that's how the whole drumming thing started. And I actually started my professional career with someone hearing me playing in my bedroom when I was about 19 years old, and told me about an audition for a group called Musique. And they had a hit song at the time called Push Push in the Bush. And the drummer left to do something else. So he heard me, called me to the window and said, man, you sounded really good. His name is Puggy. Well, we call him Puggy. His name is Wade Taylor. And he said, you sounded good, man. You want to come down to this audition? And I said, absolutely. But you got to ask my mother. So he came upstairs and he asked my mother if I could go to the audition. And I got the gig. And that was the very first time that I played professionally, very first time I had a passport. And the tour was in Mexico, so it was the very first time I was out of the country. It was a lot of firsts at 19. So,
Woo.
but it was good. It was good.
Oh, I love it. I remember a song, Push, Push in the Bush.
Yeah, that was it. Push, push in the bush. That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I won't sing because we'll lose the audience and your cookies will probably go stale. So, now,
Yes, ma'am.
when did you know that it was the right time to launch the cookie business? were there, were there other ventures, or was this something that you said, okay, I'm going to do it?
Now, I always loved to bake. I started baking as a young kid, and I was kind of shy. Uh, Being a nerd growing up in the projects is not a great, you know, it's not a great combination to like, to meet girls. I was a smart kid. I got skipped a year in junior high school. I went from seventh to ninth grade. So I was always very inquisitive. And my brothers also, and my sisters are very, very smart people. So when I would bake cookies in the very beginning, I would give them to girls just for them to say, "Oh, that was so great," just to get a chance to talk to them because I wasn't cool like my friends, in my opinion. But when I started the cookie company, my production company at the time, after this was after my mother passed away, I brought my production company to my apartment. And one day I said, "You know what? I'm going to go bake some cookies." And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I went in the kitchen, whipped up some cookies, brought them back into the production room, and they loved the cookies. And from that point on, they said, "You better have these cookies every time we come." And soon after that, my girlfriend moved in, and the holidays came around, and the idea was to give gifts to all of our friends, about 36 people on the list, but that was too many people to afford. So my suggestion was, why don't we just make the cookies and give them out? Well, that was the answer because it was cheap. It was something handmade, which people like. So that's how the cookies started in my apartment as giving out gifts for the holidays. And people said, "These are really great. You should think about selling them." And I was like, I've always wanted to do that. I think this is the moment. So at that particular time, I was playing at an open mic at Sylvia's restaurant. Every night of the week, I was in a different club. And the proprietor of the evening is someone which is Melba from Melba's restaurant. This is before Melba had the restaurant. And I called her up and I said, "Mel, I have this idea that I want to sell cookies and I want to start selling them at the open mic." And she said, "Fine, bring them in." I didn't think she was going to say fine that quick. So I was so ill prepared. I didn't even know what to do as far as labeling anything. So I made up a label on my computer. I cut it out on a piece of paper. I took school glue and glued it to a brown bag. I put the cookies in a sandwich bag inside the bag. I took a piece of tape and put it on. And we made up about 25 bags of cookies with samples. And we sold them for like $5 a bag and brought them down to the club. Uh, the the singer and MC for the night is someone you might know named Shelby J. Shelby J is the girl that sung with Prince for so many years, the girl with the bald head, that everybody knows her from her bald head. And she was also with D'Angelo. So she announced the cookies. We gave them out. People bought them. They really liked them. And there was a guy at the bar from YSB magazine, which is used to be owned by BET. And he said, "Love the cookies. Heard that you play at Showtime at the Apollo, you're the drum on the TV show. I'd love to do a story on you." And I told him, "Well, my girlfriend is also from public housing. She's from the projects too, and she's a Juilliard graduate." So he said, "Oh, this is incredible." So he did the story. I was so ill prepared again. I didn't have a number to give to him. So I asked my sister, "Can I use her pager number?" And it was one of those pager numbers with the PIN number. So I gave it to him, thinking we'll get a couple of calls. Maybe one or two people might want some cookies. First day, exactly right, a couple of calls. Next day, 10 calls. Then in the afternoon, 20 calls. Then the next day, 40 people. And that's how it started. So the apartment, with one rack at a time, had to be upgraded. And I moved into my first baking facility, which was in a brownstone that was owned by my good friend Patrice's mother, Miss Durant. And I asked her if I could use her uh, vacant apartment to put a gut her kitchen, put in a convection oven and a three tub sink and ventilation, and she let me do it. And that was the first uh, baking facility that we had. And at that point, uh, it started to go crazy when I went to Angelo Ellaby and said, "Would you be my publicist? But I don't have any money." And because Angelo and I had many years of friendship, he said, "Okay, I'm going to do this for you, and you're going to pay my expenses, and then when you can afford it, then we'll talk about me taking you on as a primary client." But within if you know Angelo, I mean, and people who don't know Angelo, Angelo is very good at what he does, and he has a heart of gold. So within a very short period of time, I'm on NBC, ABC, the TV Food Network, New York Times, the Source, Right On, the London Independent, the Village Voice, the Daily News, the Post. I'm everywhere because people are loving this story. And in the interim of this growth, my girlfriend decides she doesn't want to have anything to do with the cookies, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. Now, my music career is growing. I'm trying to bake cookies. I'm trying to be in two places, and something had to break because I had no one to work with. So I stopped the cookie company for a few years. I met my wife accidentally walking down the street one day. That's how we met. And then we talked, we had a baby, and then we talked about starting the company again. We started the same way, back in the apartment, one rack at a time. Now, my first client is Melba in her own restaurant. And that's how we got started back again to this point where we are now with Walmart.
And that is a fabulous story. Fabulous, fabulous story. And you answered my next question. So this is beautiful. Um, I know all your obstacles, how you got from point A to point B, which leads me to something that I hate to do at this moment, but because you're so interesting, we have to take a short break.
Yes,
And we
ma'am.
will be right back with our very special guest, Ralph Rolle.